All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Step by Step. Today we have a special guest who I've known for several years now. Her name is Erin Crawford. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you so much. I hope this doesn't get confusing with Aaron and Eric.
No, no,
Yeah,
no. Well, you
different
end
enough.
in an N and he ends in a C, so I'll try to keep that straight. So, like,
Thanks for having me, though. This is
yeah,
great.
no, it's been a long time coming. I know we had to sort out a lot of like details in the background to get you here today, but I'm glad everything worked out. And
Yes.
so we usually start off by just kind of recapping, maybe like one win and one opportunity or loss, if you want to call it that, that you may have experienced in the last week or so that has helped you grow. So a chance of introspection, if you will.
Well, I think maybe this will kind of bleed into what we're going to discuss today. I think the loss this week has been my kid has been sick and I have an emergency dental surgery. And so there was just a lot that I have learned about juggling a lot of things in the past week with motherhood and work and all of that. But I can't think of any other like big loss in the past week. I've been out of my house for a couple of months now because we had a water leak that did a lot of damage and we finally are moving back in. And so that's nice. So really, it's been a positive week. A win, I got well, I mean, I didn't personally, but a client that I have been having who's been having some major health struggles, and her doctor has been saying that I'm wrong on some things, finally admitted that, all right, things are improving
That's
with the
good.
changes we are making. And what do you know? Maybe there is some validity to what I say.
Yeah.
And that came from a gastroenterologist to be exact.
Awesome.
Oh, that's great.
That's good. Eric, what about you?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the win that comes to mind was we had a really good leg training session the other day. Got 30 reps with 6 plates on the hack squat. Pretty proud of that. Yeah, that was good. Good meathead stuff. A loss though. You know what? It's been a pretty good week. I kind of can't really think of a major loss. Give me a pass on that one this time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All good things. All
That's
sunshine
a
and
good
rainbows in
thing.
your
You know what?
world.
It was good. It was like, why try to find the negative thing? Well, it was
All
good.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I would say, starting with the win, I would say recently been signing a lot of clients that are more aligned with the coach that I want to be and the brand that, First Call Fitness is evolving into. I spoke about this on my story on Instagram a little while back, but last year when I was kind of waging those social media wars against some individuals and uncovering, clients that were kind of left behind or, under the rocks, so to speak, it unfortunately attracted a lot of people that didn't align with how I wanted to coach. And so while I was trying to save people at the same time, there were a lot of people that weren't ready to be saved, so to speak. So, I would say the flip side of that was the loss, and that was that I had to let go of quite a few clients that I was hoping that I could turn around, but it just wasn't in the cards, right? So on the flip side, it attracted, my branding and messaging attracted some new people who filled those slots and everything. So from a business perspective and from like a morals and mission perspective, I feel whole again. So that's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So with that said, today we're talking about, I guess, navigating weight gain or preventing weight gain throughout the seasons of women's lives. So when I first, talked to Erin about having her on, I was like, what should we talk about? Should we talk about HRT or IVF or perimenopause? And throughout all these topics, the center of everything is like women want to look good and feel good. And they want to hire coaches like us to help them do that throughout these challenges. So I guess, Erin, we're just gonna kind of like be two
Okay.
dudes, two bodybuilders
Yeah.
that don't know much about women. And we're just going to ask you questions or we'll just see where this goes.
I
I
love it.
know a
I
little
love
bit.
it.
I might know a little bit, but
I was going to say, I've always been very impressed with the information you put out there on these topics, but we'll pretend you're just some dude.
Yeah, exactly. So take us through, I guess we want to start with like maybe women in their 20s, maybe 30s, because I don't coach a lot of teenagers. I've coached maybe one girl that was like 16, 17 with her parents'
Mhm.
permission way back when. But let's start with like, I would say mid 20s, 30s. What are some of the pitfalls that you see women partaking in unknowingly that is setting them up for physiological results down the line?
In the 20s, I'd say the big things are social life stuff, that a lot of drinking and partying on the weekends, and then also toxic body care, hair care type of stuff.
Interesting.
Because in the 20s, that tends to be a big focus, is having fun and wanting to look your best, which that kind of thing doesn't ever go away, but priorities change, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And of course, those long nights and lots of alcoholic beverages, and especially coupled with, if you're putting a ton of chemicals on your skin and in your hair and on your nails and all this stuff, like it all does end up having a big impact on the overall hormonal status of your body. So I think that's a really big place that it begins.
I agree with that. I mean, from a coaching perspective, maybe it's just because of my age now, because I recently turned 40. And so,
Yeah.
Erin, are you in your no, you're in your 30s, right? Aren't you in your 30s?
Me or Eric?
No, you, Erin with an N.
Oh, I'm 38. I just turned 38. I have a birthday just, I think, the day or two before yours.
Yep. And then Eric, you're 30, what?
33.
33.
Yeah.
So we're kind of past that, early 20s,
Yeah.
late 20s age, right? So
Yeah.
when I view the landscape of coaching, I'm usually trying to convince people who are younger than me not to do the same mistakes or commit the same errors that the people older than me that I coach regret. And so
Yes.
you're always trying to be this middleman, preventing the almost inevitable, right?
Yes.
So I would say, added to what you just said is maybe like exercising introspection and coping mechanisms ahead of time. Because a
Hmm.
lot of that drinking and partying comes from not knowing yourself, because it's hard to know
Hmm.
yourself at that age.
Yeah.
But it can become very, very, I guess, dangerous when you solidify that path of coping, because that takes you down into your 30s and your 40s from a physiological and a mental emotional perspective. And it's really hard to unwind that, I think.
Yeah. It is. And I can say that as someone who's been there.
Yeah.
Like I never try to hide the fact that I have had my struggles with, say, like alcohol, and how that did play a role in the types of hormonal things that I have personally been through.
Yeah.
Um, and I now know, now that I'm on this older side of things, that yeah, I was really just trying to drown out some thoughts and feelings and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
At that time, I thought I was just trying to be social.
Yeah. I think we all kind of realize, our behaviors and the reasons for them down the line, right? Hindsight's kind of
I
2020.
was gonna say hindsight. Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
realize while you're in it, but afterwards you're like,
Mhm.
oh, that was clearly, clearly because of X, Y, Z. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Erin, what advice would you have for the younger female crowd listening to this? Like, should they all, hire a coach and start weighing their food and track macros, or what can they do reasonably as some first steps towards being healthier all around?
First steps, I would say, is just take your food intake as natural as possible. Like, get the processed crap out of there and
Mhm.
keep your body moving and active, even if it's not intentional exercise. Um, because I just having flashbacks to like sitting at tailgates while drinking beer, but I also come from Kentucky where sports are life. And, um, and so, yeah, first and foremost, I would say if you are fueling your body well, you're automatically going to feel better. And you'll notice the bigger difference when you don't feel better, like after, say, those tailgates. So that is probably the most basic that we could probably get with it, is just really try to have a real food diet and move your body at the minimum. And then as things start to hormonally change, as you mature, as priorities change, then going into overall better habits that support your health and goals as you age are almost just second nature at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So I think maybe to summarize that, I would say train yourself to know what it's like to feel good. So you can
Yes.
always kind of find your home, your foundation, because when you go out and party, you stay up until 3 a.m., or you have a bad breakup and you're stressed out for like 2 weeks binge eating, you know that that's not how you're supposed to feel. So
Right. And then I just thought of one other big thing. Track your menstrual cycle and learn about your menstrual cycle, because there is so much power in knowing about the different phases of your menstrual cycle. There's so much power in knowing, oh, you know what, that 1 week of the month, every single month, I feel like the world is ending, and I look in the mirror and can't stand what I see, but it's only that 1 week, right? And that's because of those hormonal fluctuations. And once you start tracking that, you are so empowered in like, oh, you know what? Next week is that week that I tend to hate myself and I hate everybody else on earth. And then I also binge eat at that time. So maybe I shouldn't have Oreos in my house at that week of the month. Or, like track your cycle, I think is such a basic necessity, and where we have really let down our female population.
got it. So
That's
developing
wonderful.
awareness, I would say. Eric, would you agree?
Yes.
Sounds like
That's your 20s. Develop some
that
awareness.
sounds so powerful.
Yes.
I mean, that's like, wow, like having an answer for negative feelings or urges, or just be like, oh, it's because of this, and it always has. That's so cool. I love that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You men and your 24-hour hormone cycles. We're jealous.
I know.
Yeah. That's a great takeaway. Develop awareness for people in their early to late 20s. So now let's say,
actually, I wait. A psychiatrist blew my mind one time. I was working with her on an audiobook. She told me your brain doesn't even fully develop until you're 28.
Mm.
Did you guys
Well, I
know
think
that?
that's for women. I think for men, it's even later.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I believe
Yeah,
you.
I wish I were joking. I'm not just,
How late is it?
I'm not being
Is it like
stereotypical here.
40, 45? When does it
Yeah,
stop?
probably 45.
I think
Yeah.
around like late 30s, actually.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But that fact alone, I mean, when you're in
Right.
your 20s, it's like male or female, you don't know what's going on. Your brain isn't even grown.
Yeah.
So true.
So
Yeah, it's wild.
yeah.
So start training for awareness.
Training for
Yes.
awareness.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So now I think like the next phase, I would generalize and say that, most women would be trying to get pregnant, in their maybe early 30s, mid 30s ish. They meet someone, they fall in love, they want to get married, they want to start a family. And this is where a lot of challenges happen, where, I'm sure, you and I, or Eric, I don't know if you've had a client yet that's had a miscarriage in their first trimester.
Yeah.
But that tends to happen more frequently than you might think. So, Erin, let's talk about that. What are some things that women can do to ensure that they have healthy, implantation, healthy pregnancy, conception, all of that?
Well, this is where those kind of basics from your 20s really come in. So being aware of how, or not just being aware, but because you've already started the awareness. So now here you are wanting to start a family and all of that. Take all of that you've learned about when you feel your best, tracking your cycle, eating real whole foods instead of processed foods, staying hydrated, and put it all into like major action day in and day out. And let's see, some basics also for, are you meaning like for once you were starting to want to get pregnant, essentially? Is that where we're?
Yeah, let's say like you're trying now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you want a nutrient-rich diet. And if you're having much that is processed, that is definitely decreasing the amount of nutrients you're absorbing from your diet, even when you are having some real whole foods. So you want to make sure, again, diet is kind of paramount as just the ground level for making your body a fertile place to plant that garden, right? That's kind of the best way to think of it. Because do you want to plant a garden in barren land that's never grown a blade of grass, or do you want to, you know, grow a garden where things are proven to grow? So essentially, just do your best to optimize your diet. This is where getting really much more intentional with exercise, it becomes really paramount too, because your ability to gain muscle and that kind of thing once you hit your 50s or 40s definitely decreases. So you want to start building that base now. Plus, being pregnant in general is a marathon. It is a marathon for your body. You are pushed to every type of extreme. And so you might as well go into it already feeling as good as you possibly can, because otherwise you're going to suffer unnecessarily, increased chances of negative birth outcomes.
Right.
Let's see. Are there any basics here, Jeffrey, that you tend to tell people at this point?
I would say something that you just said just triggered this thought in my mind, and I forgot the exact words you used, but I would always encourage women to have already formed probably the strongest and healthiest body image or relationship with
Yes.
their bodies as possible, and not fear the weight gain or the changes that will inevitably occur to your body when you get pregnant. So
Yes.
the worst thing that can happen is a woman who's obsessed with the scale, doesn't want to eat more, wants to lose weight, shed fat while she's pregnant. And so she's sort of like fighting against like what her body is naturally about to do. And that
Yeah.
can put a woman in a very anxious and fear-driven state. And I say this, as a man having, I will never experience this. So people listening, I don't claim that I know what I'm talking about here. All I'm saying is I'm relaying what other women have told me, and I'm trying to empathize with that. That's all.
You're totally, totally correct. It is a mind fuck like no other. Sorry, excuse my
Oh, you can
language.
swear?
Hope
Oh,
I can say
great.
fuck.
Yeah.
But it is. It's a mind fuck like no other. I was personally in a competition prep and competing 6 months before I got pregnant.
Mm,
So
I
to
remember that.
go from 8-9% body fat to 40,
Yeah.
was a bit of a mental shock. Um, but that brings up a whole other topic that I'd like to touch on really fast, and that is that if you have perpetually dieted and dieted and dieted and dieted, you are now attempting to grow another human, right? And you can't do that in a caloric deficit. And very often, if you are going into wanting to conceive, you might need to put on some body fat, because body fat is protective also at the end of the day. And I have seen many, many, many women come to me and like, well, I'm just so healthy. I don't understand why I'm not getting pregnant. And well, you're way under eating. Like,
Mhm.
if you're not feeding your body enough to fuel yourself, you're definitely not going to fuel the growth of another human being and the growth of their bones and the growth of their brain and the growth of their heart and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But also on the opposite side of that, if you come out of your 20s a little overweight from the partying and that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
you may need to lose body fat to reduce the inflammation to make you again that fertile ground to grow that garden from.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a very fine line and actually clear difference between what we perceive as looking and feeling good to what our bodies deem as optimized systems internally.
Yeah.
So while I may like being shredded and I think I feel great, walking, 8 miles or 10 miles, what we were doing, Eric, for contest prep,
I just know it took 3 hours.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not healthy for hormonal production or
Yeah.
stress levels or
Not
whatever.
Yeah.
And I think, I just want to mention that, the most important hormone, I think, for, a woman trying to conceive would be progesterone. And adequate progesterone levels are required in order to have a healthy, endometrial lining and for the egg to actually plant itself and grow. So a lot of things can assault the production of progesterone during this time, and stress is one of them. Undernourishment is another. Healthy amounts of magnesium, zinc, B vitamins, vitamin C. These things all come from fruits and vegetables, whole grains, eating enough red meat. I being vegan is a whole nother thing that I don't know if I want to go down, but let's say that you're able to eat red meat, eat plenty of it for the iron. And this is where, when we talked about awareness and developing awareness of your menstrual cycle, so how to spot irregularities, you've already developed nutritional awareness, so you know how to shore things up and correct things when you kind of deviate off due to stress, for example. But healthy progesterone, number one, I would say, because that is the number one reason why women have first trimester miscarriages.
Yeah, it is. And also make sure you have some medical providers that are very much supportive of these types of efforts, or aware of like the importance of progesterone, for instance, who, if you have struggled with progesterone stuff, they'll be willing to, at that time, give you progesterone for your first trimester, just to really help support the pregnancy continues. Essentially, the placenta takes over the progesterone production around that 14 to 20 week of pregnancy. So if you can just get to that point, but yeah, it's the fostering the awareness of how your body works that is going to greatly increase your chances of having happy, healthy pregnancies.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Eric, do you have any questions or anything?
I do actually, Erin. Here's something I've noticed with a lot of friends of mine and friends of friends who are women. A lot of them tell me all the time that they have no appetite. And I'll be like, because I don't know, we talk about bodybuilding, what they watch me eat like multiple times while we're hanging out.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know how you do that. Well, what did you have today? Like, well, I didn't have breakfast. For lunch, like maybe I had like a small thing. And then for dinner, I don't know. I don't really want anything. And it's like, I don't know how you're alive.
Yeah.
Is that something that you notice or that you see, or is there a reason?
Nine out of 10 women come to me under eating.
Yeah. Okay.
9 out of 10. And whether they come to me wanting to just lose 10 pounds or wanting to get pregnant and haven't been able to for 10 years, 9 out of 10, I'd say, come to me under eating. Or when they do eat, it's just kind of processed stuff, ready-made packaged stuff. And this was, again, something else that I have personal experience with. I had done my plant-based days where I also intermittent fasted, and I essentially just had coffee until like 1 p.m. And it was kind of a health crisis that happened at that time that made me go, oh wait, I'm not in a good healthy place to even have a baby. And that is, I think, a societal driven thing, because we as women are told I know I went on my first diet when I was 11. Wow. So we have been told our whole lives that we need to eat less and exercise more. And very often people don't want to exercise, so they just eat even less. And then this is where hunger signals and appetite can kind of be liars, because as that increases stress hormones, you start to literally be addicted almost to running on stress hormones. Then you just silence those hunger signals. And so you think you're not hungry, right, and then, you're starving at night and you binge on a pint of ice cream instead of having had a nutrient dense meal. If you start training yourself to eat within 30, 60 minutes of waking up, and having regular whole food meals throughout the day, your appetite can absolutely do a complete turnaround in just a month. Like, you have no appetite, and a month later you have a big appetite, and what do you know, all of a sudden that period that I've had that here randomly shows up whenever, it's now here every 28 days. And that's when it's just you start to nourish your body. People don't realize that they are driving the car with no gas in the tank until the car breaks down, essentially. And so often that breakdown is the inability to get pregnant or the miscarriages or those kinds of things. And it's unfortunate, but it's unfortunately just a major societal message that we were given. So this is where coaches who encourage women to actually eat come in so handy, instead of just saying, hey, why don't we fast? And why don't we do these extremes?
Yeah, the two great things you said there, the training yourself to eat within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up. That's a real good one. I'm going to use that. That's fantastic. Is there any other ways that you help maybe your clients start training themselves to eat?
Honestly, it's just do it kind of thing.
Yeah, just
even if
love,
and
just do it.
this is the great thing about today's modern world. We all are walking around with stopwatches and or timers in our pockets now. If you have to set a timer to remind yourself to eat, because I'm guilty of being a bit of a workaholic and sitting here at my desk and getting so into things that I'm like, oh, it's been too long since I've eaten, I should eat now. Just start training yourself to, even if you have to set an alarm, and protein rich, just like when you're trying to grow muscle. So here I am talking to you meatheads now.
Yeah.
Just like when you're trying to grow muscle, you need lots of protein. Well, the same exact kind of process is happening when you're trying to grow a new human being. And so protein. Because talk about the ultimate protein synthesis, right? Is growing a whole other body.
No kidding. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm eating right now, even while we're on this podcast. I'm drinking.
I just ate right before you.
So Erin, so let's say that, pregnancy has been successful. So now the woman is, pregnant with a child. And so some of the main concerns that I get with pregnant clients are, number one, appetite issues. Either they are extremely, extremely hungry, or they don't want to eat, like we just covered, or they have cravings that they simply cannot control. So how have you successfully navigated getting proper nutrition while pregnant and dancing around all these hunger signals and cravings?
So again, even if you have to set a timer, that one is important so that you're not overindulging or under fueling. And then I would say the biggest problem in the first trimester is food aversions. So here I was as a bodybuilder myself. I had just eaten chicken every day for the last 4 years straight, right? And that was my first symptom. Was I was all of a sudden I couldn't look at, think about, or smell chicken, or I would vomit. So, like, to talk about the most extreme random aversions. So you have to just kind of figure out what does work. And for each individual human, each individual woman, that is going to be different. One easy way of going about it is a good high quality protein shake if necessary, and then throw some berries in it, throw a scoop of some like coconut oil or coconut manna in there for some fats, essentially make it more than just a protein shake, make it have some carbs and some fats to it as well. Maybe even throw some greens in there, blend it all up. Another really easy way to hit some protein and during pregnancy, because protein for whatever reason tends to be the food aversion, is sipping on some bone broth. That one is just kind of an easy one. I have this like rosemary flavored olive oil, and I would do a little dab of that in some bone broth with, like, maybe put some ginger in there, make it just flavorful. And also with a lot of pregnant women, nausea is a really big issue too. And ginger is very helpful for nausea. Let's see here. Cravings are out of this world and for the weirdest things. So for instance, I haven't eaten like Doritos in a decade, but like all of a sudden I wanted Cooler Ranch Doritos when I was pregnant, and I was not about to put that in my body and let that be what my baby grew on. But I did find at Whole Foods these ranch flavored pickles. And I would eat like a container of those pickles a day. And they quench the craving, So it's kind of like saying, okay, if I have this craving, what can I do with it that isn't going to be toxic to this pregnancy and to this baby growing?
Yeah.
Are there
For the
any
most part,
protein-
one thing that I think is highly detrimental to pregnancy outcomes is the myth that you are eating for two. Um, you do not need to go from eating, say, 2,000 calories to 4,000 calories in a day.
Right.
The average pregnancy needs only an increase of about 300 total calories by the end of the pregnancy. And all in all, if you're eating cookies every day, that's the equivalent to two cookies. Like that's the equivalent to not much at all.
Mhm.
And you do want those additional calories to be more in the way of carbs in the beginning, but more in the way of fats towards the end, because in that second and third trimester, you are literally creating that other brain. And our brains are made of fat. So you really want to have some good high quality fat sources in there. And then just in general, increasing protein will typically help kind of stave off major hunger crashes and that kind of thing too. So let protein be a good base for every single meal. Another big thing is a lot of nausea happens because women go too long between meals. So I always say when someone's pregnant, go ahead and have 5, 6, 7 small meals a day and make them protein based, every single one of them. And that tends to help you feel full, not crave as much, and not have as bad of nausea.
Got it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it is very important. I mean, most women, I think, understand that, their pregnancy or what they eat during their pregnancy will affect their birth outcome. It can literally program the child before it's even born. So obviously a diet that is, kind of unbridled could encourage things like gestational diabetes or encourage your child to be diabetic.
Preeclampsia is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, so it seems like it's really just, plug and play, seeing what works, what doesn't with
Yeah.
most women in terms of getting the food down and, the troubleshooting aversions and things like that. Now,
Yes.
so an average pregnancy, would you say that someone should gain anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds max,
Yeah.
like guideline, for
Yes.
300 calories
I
over?
would over 30 starts to be like, okay, you're not having a 30-pound baby,
Yeah.
So, and this was something that I definitely majorly mentally struggled with especially going from competition prep to pregnancy. And also I personally I am a cervical cancer survivor. And I had cervical cancer a total of 4 times. And with all the surgeries I'd had for that back in the day, they had actually told me I would never have children. And if I were to get pregnant, that I would not be able to carry children because of the way the surgeries had changed my cervix, which essentially is what holds the baby in. So this is what I mean by, it's very individual. I personally had to drastically reduce my activity levels or the types of exercises I was doing. I pretty much had to go to seated exercises for all of my pregnancy. And when you're someone who loves doing, all the squats and the
Right. Like a hernia, you're
all,
gonna, yeah.
yeah. So,
So you
but
trained
past
all through your pregnancy.
all through, yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
But that's not the case for everybody. And that's kind of another big myth that we see is that women shouldn't lift, or pregnant women shouldn't lift weights. And it's like, no, this would be a really good time to build strength in your body because you're going to need it.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So, but getting back to the actual weight gain part of it, you're going to gain weight. So don't let that hold you back from fueling your body well. But also, if you start, edging up to and over 30 pounds, maybe really start watching the actual quality and quantity of what it is that you're having, decrease the sugar drastically. Sugar intake in pregnancy can be the cause of preeclampsia. And which is, by the way, a high blood pressure crisis that can essentially kill the baby or the mother. And just get really specific at that point if you start getting more than 30 pounds, with what it is that you're eating and the amount, essentially. But yeah, you're going to gain weight, and it's okay.
Now here's sort of it might be maybe a curveball question, but I'm sure you
Okay.
know stuff, so I'm going to ask it. So,
Okay.
is it healthy, or is it possible for most women to either gain muscle or lose body fat while they are pregnant?
It is
So
possible.
it's possible.
It is possible.
Okay. I,
That's because hormonally, you are in one of the most anabolic times of your life.
Wow.
Like your hormones are in a place where they're like, all right, let's do something. And this is where you would want to probably work with a professional, a coach, a trainer who knows all about pregnant women. But you can absolutely put on muscle. And well, I wouldn't say you would want to lose body fat at that point, but putting on the muscle and maintaining body fat with where you're at. So again, as you both are well aware, if you're putting on muscle, that's putting on weight. So even if the scale's going up, you may not see like your jeans getting much tighter in your thighs, for instance, or whatnot. It's kind of interesting. It is very individualized. Again, each pregnancy, I feel like when I work with clients, has its own complication or hard part that not everybody shares, but it is possible. I had one client who had actually come to me because she had been struggling for a while to get pregnant with her third. She had psoriatic arthritis and had gone 100%. She had discovered that if she had no carbs, that her psoriatic arthritis symptoms went away. So she was 100% keto, like just fats and proteins. But also carbs help make progesterone. And so when we started working together, I very slowly started inching up her carbs. Like we started at like, okay, here's 30 carbs today, which is hilarious to me because I just had 60 carbs in my snack.
Right.
But it's interesting though, because as we just stayed on top of the quality of what she was eating, as we brought more and more and more carbs back in, she still did not have any symptoms. And then and she had a nice setup for a home gym. It actually reminds me a lot of yours, Jeffries.
Mm.
And as we got to about a year in, she was probably back up to about 250 carbs a day and was having the best menstrual cycles of her life. The psoriatic arthritis type of symptoms were very, very rare if they happened at all. And bam, she found out she was pregnant finally at about a year in. She gained a total of 19 pounds in her pregnancy. And within a week of giving birth to a beautiful, healthy, I think the baby was an 8.5 pound. A week later, she was back to her pre-pregnancy weight.
Huh.
And she had stayed active and working out, and she had even bought a leg press while she was pregnant since she didn't feel as comfortable with squats then. And when we looked at her like before pregnancy to after pregnancy photos, she had so much more muscle, but had
Wow.
maintained weight beautifully. And so, yeah, it's absolutely possible.
That's a very inspiring story for
Yeah,
people. No,
that's incredible.
that's
Love
great.
that.
That's great. Eric, do you have any questions or anything?
What were we talking about before? Something did pop into my brain, but I think I lost it. Um, oh, yeah. Okay. So I've had clients who have had kids. They say they use this term all the time. They say stomach pooch. They say I want to get rid of my stomach pooch. And usually I give it's like, okay, well, diet, training, but also I say you made people. So just like, can you be nice to yourself for a second? Because like, you know what I mean? But I guess I don't have a specific question, but have you heard women use that term? Is there a way to do anything about that, etc.?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so one thing I want to point out is that when a woman gets pregnant, her uterus starts out at about this big, and then it ends up at about this big, right? So, and then it takes a few months to go back, but it never goes back to this. It stays bigger. And then if you have repeat pregnancies, then it doesn't, your uterus just doesn't go back to this, what it was. And very often I have women will point or highlight or circle this on their photos, and they're like, why can't I get rid of this? How have I gained glutes, but I still have this? And I'm like, that's your uterus.
Okay. Got it.
So unless you want to just have that removed, there's more things in there
Yeah.
than
Makes
just
total
body
sense.
fat.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, too, as you all are probably well aware, estrogen and where estrogen can cause you to hold body fat, specifically kind of in the midsection, the buttocks, thighs area, that, of course, combined with a larger uterus on the inside can definitely make it seem like it is protruding so much more.
Mhm.
I very much, for probably the 6 months postpartum, I was like, I hope this goes away. And it has definitely now that I am back to pre-pregnancy, and I'm lower than my pre-pregnancy weight now. And so now that I'm back down, like there's, it sticks out a little bit more than it used to.
Yeah.
But again, back on top of diet, back on top of hormone health, and it's not as bad.
Awesome.
Perfect. Now, Erin, after giving birth, the postpartum time period, what is your advice there? What are the challenges there? Because a lot of women will come to me saying that, oh, I just want to, get this weight off, but I don't know how long I'm going to be breastfeeding for. Maybe they're doing, full-time feeding. Maybe they're doing, some combination of full-time and bottle feeding. So during that time, but they're also burning a lot of calories breastfeeding, right? I think on average,
It's equivalent to running 6 miles a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So what should a woman do immediately after giving birth with the mindset that she wants to lose the baby weight? What is your advice?
Thank you for the way that you have asked this, by the way. So I have a lot to say about this. First, let's talk about the first week postpartum. A lot of people don't realize that you will have the largest hormonal drop of your life 48 hours after giving birth. Your estrogen levels go from like 3,000 to 0 in 48 hours.
Oh, man.
So that in and of itself can kind of send you into a bit of a tailspin, mental health wise, mood wise, cravings wise, like all kinds of things. So my biggest advice is be super gentle with yourself and absolutely do not diet for the first, what I like to refer to as the 4th trimester, essentially the first 3 months postpartum.
Good advice.
At that point, that's when I say bring in some resistance training and some light walking. And just in general steps and getting your steps in every day again. Shoot for 8,000-10,000 steps in a day. But I would still not diet so much as just be on top of the quality of your food, because when you are taking in really high quality whole foods, your body is going to respond completely differently to that than if you are taking in the same amount of calories in processed crap of some sort. The body just responds differently. Your body is trying to remember how to make its own hormones at this point, because your placenta has just taken over for at least 4.5 to 6 months in making all of your hormones. Your body stopped making it. And now the placenta is gone, and now your body has to relearn how to make your hormones, very much like if you have been on birth control for many years, and then when you go off of birth control and your body has to kind of relearn how to make and synthesize estrogen and progesterone and all these things again. Let's see.
So I have a question for you,
yeah,
Erin, if you don't mind me interjecting here, otherwise I'll forget.
You're interrupting your own questions.
Is lactation induced amenorrhea or the perceived protection from further pregnancy because you are breastfeeding?
Yes, it's fascinating. So prolactin levels are up, which actually the man in the relationship will also have higher prolactin levels at that time, which makes it's so fascinating. His testosterone will drop, his prolactin will increase.
Is that true?
Not if I can help.
Yeah, we have drugs for that.
Right, unless you just stick yourself.
So that really happens just like by proxy, the man in the relationship.
It's kind of nature's way of saying, hey, let's get through this really hard year we're about to have without having another baby. Wow. But I also had some clients come to me where they've struggled to get pregnant and they got so healthy that they were pregnant again in
Yeah.
4 months.
So,
Erin, prolactin also dampens testosterone in males, so it almost like ensures that the male is around to be a good parent.
It's a biological thing to really ensure
Yeah.
good parents that are going to help raise that baby out of infanthood.
Yeah. Because prolactin levels go up like after you orgasm. So that's what that refractory period that a lot of men have. It's like you've already like orgasm. You don't want to go again.
You're just living in that.
You're living in that.
Well, women actually having an orgasm increases breast milk.
Huh. Well,
it's so fascinating. It's so fascinating. Yeah. So essentially, think of the first 3 months postpartum as a time of recovery, and don't really diet. Don't worry about hardcore workouts or anything. Yeah, maybe after 6-7 weeks, start going on some daily walks, that kind of thing. After about that 4th trimester, so around that 4 months postpartum, start increasing activity levels. Start getting more intentional with some exercising. Definitely see a pelvic floor therapist. That's one of my biggest things I want to see. Pelvic floor therapist is essential because because and that's where so many things are centered about a woman's health. So
we could literally do a whole nother podcast on this with like C-section births and how that could lead to SIBO and
so much. There's so much to say here.
Perceive themselves as having some gut issue, but it's really like a pelvic floor dysfunction, or it's a TVA rupture issue, hernia, whatever it is.
There's so many things. And then so this is a personal opinion. I know that this isn't widely shared in the fitness industry, or the diet industry, or however you want to say it. I like to say, as long as you are trying to breastfeed. So if you want to breastfeed for 6 months, if you want to breastfeed for a year or 2 years, which the World Health Organization does recommend 2 years. I'm personally at 17 months in now. Don't diet. Like, don't drastically cut your calories. Now, I had been maintaining weight at like 2,500 calories myself. So I had some wiggle room. I'm now at like 2,200 calories and have seen some great, definition, whatnot coming back in. But I also think that you should, as long as you are trying to breastfeed, you don't want to go into any type of major caloric restriction, and you mostly want to just focus on some resistance training and movement. Now, as I have been getting closer to looking at starting to wean or not breastfeed as much, I'm like, okay, it won't hurt me if I need to drop calories another 100 or 200 calories. So for instance, I have a photo shoot coming up for a magazine cover in 2 weeks. And I'm like, you know what? For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to drop it even a couple more 100 calories a day. Just tighten things up, But as long as you're wanting to breastfeed, don't go drastic with your diet, or the breast milk will dry up in a week. It really will. And I don't want to come across like I'm not supportive of those women who have breastfeeding struggles, because that is a large portion of women in general. But that also comes down to quality of diet very often. So if you've already been having trouble with, say, like breastfeeding, and so you have switched to formula, then you're probably in a better place than someone who is trying to continue breastfeeding to go ahead and start some caloric deficit, or at least dropping calories some. But otherwise, try to get that mainly from increasing activity levels.
Got it. Now, what about supplements? Because a lot of women also ask about what supplements are okay and what's not okay. Like, is it okay to do like a light anavar cycle while you're pregnant so that it sets you up for getting shredded afterwards? Like, what would you advise absolutely don't touch? And what are some things that you do advise?
Well, I would definitely say anabolic steroids are probably something you don't want to touch at that time, maybe on down the road.
Yeah.
Now, again, if you're not breastfeeding, you're not going to be sharing your, your anavar with your baby, then I'll leave that up to you. But supplements wise, vitamin A is important. So like beef liver, cod liver oil are kind of my go-tos, or not even beef liver as much as kind of a beef organ supplement. Life and what is that one called? Heart and Soil brand has a great beef organ supplement, but they also have one that is like desiccated beef blood. So it's super iron rich, which a lot of women are super deficient in iron after pregnancy. Now, that's one thing, though, that I do want to bring up is postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum rage. All of these things tend to be exacerbated and by the utter depletion that a woman goes through in pregnancy. A woman loses 75 to 80% of her mineral stores in the third trimester alone, because the baby is, in the third trimester is saying, okay, we are really getting the skeleton ready to be a human and be out in the world. So all of that gets sucked out of a woman. This is when a woman sees a lot of post-pregnancy hypothyroidism, dental issues, that kind of thing. And so minerals are just so extremely important. So magnesium, potassium, sodium, boron is also actually really important at this time. Selenium to really help support thyroid. So minerals. And then what helps minerals? Well, good healthy fats help those to be better absorbed and utilized by the body. So that's why cod liver oil tends to be one of my favorite things, because it's kind of the combo of vitamin A and minerals and healthy fats all in one. Then the beef organs are just really bioavailable minerals and nutrients and vitamins. And then red raspberry leaf is super important throughout pregnancy and in the postpartum time for helping heal up and bring that uterus back down in size. Let's see. There was something on the tip of my tongue that I was about to say. Oh, major liver support. Because again, when your body goes through drastic estrogen changes, your liver, which is so responsible for detoxing out excess estrogen from the body and keeping just kind of keeping things running. So things along the lines of milk thistle, which actually also helps to increase breast milk, hence why it's called milk thistle. And Tudka, I'm a big fan of. I don't know how, if you all, I've heard people say Tudka, but I really like that one. Studies have even proven that Tudka can help increase positive birth outcomes because your liver is dealing with so much estrogen during pregnancy that just helps your body process it better. And so studies have actually shown that improves birth outcomes. NAC, or just glutathione in general, to help with antioxidants and keeping you happy at a cellular level, just because your body is going through one of the biggest changes it'll ever go through.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So now what about so let's take our listeners through maybe some of the later stages in life for most women. So perimenopause and menopause. So again, it's difficult when you meet a client who's in her 50s or even 60s, and she's never weight trained before. She's been conditioned to go on low calorie diets, fad diets is all she knows, right? So how do you begin to wrangle and educate a client like this so that she does follow your lead as a coach and buys into what we know, eating more, lifting weights, all that kind of stuff? How do you get that buy-in with these clients?
Well, sometimes you have to be also, nicely blunt in that, well, how have those low calorie diets been working for you? Because if you're feeling like this and you want to feel like this, and this is what you're doing, then you're going to have to change something. And obviously, if you're only eating 1,000 calories a day, we can't eat less. So let's try 1,200 calories and see how you feel for a week or 2 weeks or a month. And then let's try 1,300, and you can keep edging it up. I actually have a client right now. She's about a month in. She is 67 years old. And she came to me eating 900 calories a day. And I have her up to about 1,300. Now, granted, she's 67 and she's 5 feet tall, so I doubt at this point there's room to really jack calories up, but she is down like 10 pounds,
Yeah.
having increased her food. So it's really just a matter of, if this hasn't worked, let's just try something different. And we don't have to try it for a long time, but let's just see how you feel, how you sleep. Like, because typically someone's sleep isn't good if their gut is hungry or, got some SIBO or whatnot going on. And then once sleep starts to improve, then weight starts to typically at least balance out or start going in the direction they want to see it. And that in and of itself right there will be the buy-in of, oh, I've only made this kind of change for a week or two and I'm not gaining weight. So maybe if it's kind of a little bit of a stair step process.
Yeah, it's tough coaching people in that later year age bracket because they don't know what it's like to feel good. They spent their whole lives like forcing something or the other with their
Yeah.
bodies. And a lot of them are also at a time of their lives where they want to enjoy food and travel and freedom. But
Yeah.
yet, to a degree, getting a healthy body from an internal and external perspective requires some degree of framework and restriction. And so
Yeah.
you're battling this desire to live freely versus live in some sort of framework. So I almost liken it to somebody who hasn't invested for retirement up until they're 50 and they're staring retirement like the barrel of a shotgun, and they still want to enjoy their lives, but they don't also want to save money. So it's like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. With
This is where, we are presented in life with opportunities to keep on doing what's not working or try something new, whether it's saving for retirement or our health at that point. Like at that point, I mean, what is the average lifespan right now? Like 74 or something. So if someone is 67, do they want to be miserable for the next 7 years? Do they want to live another 20 or 30 years? Yeah.
Yeah, I think overall, to wrap this up in a sense, and I don't know if you guys both agree with this, but I would say finding acceptance and finding awareness can be two things that women and men, even though this podcast episode is about women, can do at any point in your life. Because what I do when I get any sort of client is I spend some time with them in maintenance or even a slight surplus. I make sure the habits are there, they're consistent, they can follow a dietary framework, they're training properly, they're doing a little bit of cardio, they're managing stressors, and they're getting enough rest. And I spend, a good 3 to 6 months there so that they know what it's like to feel good. So, and they're accepting of that and they're aware of it. So that way you can drive things in different directions from that foundation. But I don't think there's been a single person that I get where I'm like, okay, yeah, let's just go right into fat loss.
Right. Right. If nothing else, we need to become aware of habits before needing to jump straight into something hard on the body.
Yeah, I agree. That's for men and for women. Just a lot of people it's hard to be introspective. I think as humans, we just don't want to look ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah. That's human nature, and that's where the need and for a coach comes in. Have that outside perspective and that accountability. Yeah.
No, for sure. Is there anything else either of you guys want to add to this as we wrap things up?
I feel like, Jeffrey, you at least have quite a few clients, kind of like me, that are more in those menopause years. I'm wondering what you see in those early menopause years and what you recommend.
In terms of just hormones or lifestyle or
Well, because we were talking about gaining weight through different stages of a female's life, and definitely when perimenopause and menopause hit, like things just start being different when it comes to weight gain and weight loss.
Well,
so I was just kind of
number one, I think, is a lack of muscle and a lack of awareness on how to build it and how to maintain it. So that goes right back into the importance of strength training and the departure from cardio-based classes that a lot of women are sort of addicted to, but they're addicted to it from habit, but they're also addicted to it from a community perspective. So it's very hard to coach that out of them, but eventually it's possible to do, right? So maintaining and building muscle via weight training is number one. Understanding some sort of dietary framework or accepting a framework that allows them to live their lives, on the go, adaptable to stressors, both family and professional. I think that's really important, something that they can stick to. And then finally, I would say navigating the ups and downs of hormones, perimenopause and menopause, maintaining healthy progesterone levels as long as possible. That's another aspect to this. And then finally, just patience and kindness to themselves. Some of my clients that are the most difficult to work with are the ones who have a lot of free time and they spend it on social media comparing themselves, or they are emotionally stuck to a scale weight that they associate to a better part of their lives. So it's not that they look great at like 134 pounds, it's because back then they hadn't been divorced twice yet, or their child didn't try to kill themselves, or they didn't bankruptcy,
Right.
There's a lot of like,
I think what you just said is so important.
yeah, there's a lot of
So
emotional
important.
regret and guilt and sadness. It's weird. Like when I was like 20 and 30, I never really understood what it was like to be an adult. And we're all just trying to figure things out. Like nobody has it figured out. Like I'm 40 now and I'm still scared as shit every day of my life. And I imagine being 55, you're the same. You're still scared, still trying to figure shit out. So that it makes coaching more human and it encourages more empathy, I think, from me. It's not just, just follow this plan. It's like, oh, I got to understand this person a little bit more. So
Yeah. I love that. That was a great answer.
that's my takeaway. That's my advice, I guess. So anyway, so where can people find you, Erin? What are you working on? Any public speaking engagements, other things going on in your life?
Yes, I have some exciting upcoming things. I'm the newest contributor to the Nashville Fit magazine, which is a magazine that comes out every 2 months in Nashville, but also online. Just kind of about the overall fitness industry, but I'm their new food. Uh, uh, I'm going to be writing articles about food and eating
The food
healthy
czar,
for
is
fitness.
that the title? The food czar?
The food czar, that's me. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to adopt that. Thanks for that.
Congratulations. Is that the shoot? The shoot you're getting ready for?
But we're also doing a full food issue. So I'm writing an entire magazine right now to be published in June. And then I am joining the coaches of Integrated Muscle and Health, Austin Stout and Matt Burscott and Trey, those guys, for a seminar coming up in Indianapolis, also on June 1st. A lot going on June 1st. I've got bodybuilding clients that are competing in May and June for sure. And so I'll be traveling to those shows. You can find me at it's innately_nourished on Instagram. I don't really do much as with my actual Facebook page like I probably should, but you can find me on Instagram or email me Erin@innatelynourished.com. And I'm excited to see what the second half of the year will bring as well.
Yeah, me too. Last question, Erin. How many kids is too many kids to have?
So I am good with one. I am good with one now that I have made it through the postpartum. I'm like, I'm good. But some of my best friends have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's should be determined by the person and the relationship.
I'm good with my plants still.
Yeah, I have a cat. My cat is cool for me.
Eric has a cat.
I have a cat. Yeah, that's enough.
Anyways, all right, Erin, thank you so much for joining us. This was great. I'm gonna get this up probably tonight so everyone can listen to it. So
thanks so much for having me. It was good talking to you, Eric, too.
Yes, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
See ya.
Y'all have a great day.